gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this solemn function organized this morning in honor, memory, remembrance, homage and gratitude to one who is dear to us, one who was part of us, one who drew his identity during the formative years of his life from these institutions of ours, having spent 16 of the 36 impressionable years of his life in the campuses of our institutions, and who by his acts and deeds made not just the nation, the family, the institution and the people of this country proud. Parameshwaran Major R. Parameshwaran. It would cross your mind as to why is it that 36 years after his demise, there is a sudden bout of nationalism, patriotism and an upsurge of symbolism in a function that is being held. It is not that the South Indian Education Society does not remember him every day since he had left this institution. This very school, where he spent 11 years, more than 2 decades ago, had a portrait of Parameshwaran hung in the passage of this school for the benefit of the students, the young ones, to draw inspiration from his life and times. The SIES College of Arts, Science and Commerce Autonomous observes the 25th of November each year with activities allied to the defense of this nation and in remembrance of Major Parameshwaran. Last year, the local army unit had a weaponry exhibition in the college, which was followed by a Shakti Pradarshan by the HC cadets, which earned the admiration and awe of people who had witnessed that function, sending a message far and wide and very clear that there are several Parameshwarans in the making in the campuses of SIES. The trigger for this morning's function, of course, was the 125th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, which the Government of India celebrated by naming 21 islands in Andaman Nicobar, which are the most strategic defense assets of the nation, after 21 Paramveer Chakras, and the Honorable Prime Minister named one of the dweeps as Parameshwaran Dweep. The government of the day can have extended symbolism to reach out to the youthful populace of this country. Why should not an institution of which he was part and parcel in his early years, in whom all these qualities were instilled in those years of learning, not have a better medium to reach out to the students of this institution, to recall the greatness of his contribution, and more importantly, draw inspiration and follow path. And that is the reason why we decided to have the bust unveiled both at the SIES High School and the SIES College of Arts, Science and Commerce. Why do we remember people? We come across millions of people in our life journey. Some flash through our eyes and vanish into the thin. No sooner they are come to our eyes. There are little few who may linger around for some time and then sink into the oblivion. There are very few who travel through the islands, down to find a permanent place in the hearts and minds of all of us. It is only the like of them whom we remember at all times. Charles Schultz, the celebrated author of that book Peanuts, I don't know how many you have read, postulated the theory of remembrance in a very easy way. He said, ask anyone whom you come across today, tomorrow, these questions to him. Tell him to name any 2 Nobel winners of the previous year, any 2 of the Grammy Award winners, the World Series Award winners, the Pulitzer Award winners, or still better, the Mother of Awards, the Oscar Awards winners. Name any 2 of the wealthiest men that the Forbes list of wealthy, which has been released the year before. You will find that most of us will fumble. We do not remember the headlines of yesterday. It is not that they are second-rated achievers. They are the best in their fields. But with passage of time, applause dies, accolades are tarnished, awards and titles are buried with the owners. Charles goes further and says, ask these questions to the same set of people. Name the teacher, either in your school or in the college, who had a profound impact on both your character and career in the later years. Name the person who helped you at the height of your distress and bailed you out of a crisis. Name the person with whom you would love to spend your time with when you have free time. Name that man in uniform from your district who gave the supreme sacrifice of his life so that you and I are safe and secure. Pat will come the reply, mostly 100 out of 100. It is therefore very clear that we do not remember the most moneyed on the earth. We do not even remember all those people who are the most qualified with titles, honors in their language. But we remember people who love and care. Charles goes further and says, as long as such people exist in planet Earth, never fear that the world will come to an end. And then he jokingly added, not this night, because it is already morning in Australia and New Zealand. We love Major Parameshwaran because he cared for us. He cared for this nation. And that is why we have this remembrance. The South Indian Education Society had groomed and developed several of its students in the formative years, both in the school and in the colleges, to be equipped to the exacting standards of discipline, rigor, and professionalism of the defense forces of this nation. Very few would know how many of our alumni have reached positions of great importance in the hierarchy of the defense forces, be it the air, the water, or in the grounds. Vice Admiral S. Ratnam, Air Vice Admiral S. Ratnam, was a student of the SIES High School. He was the younger brother of late S.R. Iyer, who was the Joint Under Secretary of the Society. He was decorated during his long service with the Parameshwaran Seva Medal, the Ativishishta Seva Medal, and the President's Medallion for long and meritorious service. Sundaram Ramaswamy joined the SIES High School 3 years later than Major Parameshwaran, and he followed the same path. After passing out of the school, he went to the college. He completed his BSc in physics, not chemistry for him, and he was also employed in the college as a demonstrator in the physics laboratory. But then the call of the services was far more intense in him that he joined the border security force. By dint of hard work and merit, he rose the ranks to become the Inspector General. He was also the Acting Director General for some time, earning during his lifetime the President's Medal for Meritorious Service, a rank of Lieutenant General equivalent in the Indian Army in grade 16. Captain Srinivas was a young Todd who came into the SIES College. He did his BA in politics, and as soon as he passed out, he joined the Indian Army. And he was selected into the 7 Maratha Light Infantry and commissioned in Matunga at a very young age. He fought the terrorists that night, no less than what Major Parameshwaran had done. He was alone that night, and that envoy ultimately succumbed to his injuries, but finished those terrorists who wanted to sneak into the country through Matunga. He was the only son of his parents, but that did not bring any despair or despondency to them. On the contrary, they were very proud of his achievements. They came and told me that they are setting up an endowment in the SIES College in the name of Captain Srinivas, so that the young ones in the colleges can draw inspiration and reach levels more than what Srinivas had attained. Ramanathan too had set up an endowment in the SIES High School in the year 1998. He augmented the corpus in the year 2002 in honor and memory of his elder brother for the same purpose. In the year 2017, a group of students unrelated to the family came together because they were inspired by the acts of Parameshwaran. They raised a large corpus and created an endowment in his name for improving the sports facilities in the school with singular focus on masculine physicality, which is an essential ingredient for recruitment into the armed forces. And today, as we remember him, his batchmates, all of them are coming closer to 80 years of age. They have all come from various parts of the country to assemble here this morning over here, and they have come forward to set up an endowment again in memory of Major Parameshwaran in the school to carry forward the tradition that this institution has done. There are countless number of our students in all the colleges who are in various ranks of the Indian Army, the Navy and the Air Force. The South Indian Education Society enjoys a very close connect with the Indian Army. It entered into an MOU with the Office of GOC, MGNG, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Goa to create a preferential corridor for admission for both engineering and management studies for men in uniform who opt for study leaves to enrich their qualifications through these programs. Their children, the children of the retired men and retired servicemen, and also the children of the martyrs' families, with a waiver of 90% of the scheduled fees for these courses, calling upon them to pay just a nominal 10% fees for admission to these programs. But the fruits of this MOU can be harvested and gained with little help from the Office of the GOC if they can address the issues of accommodation of upcountry servicemen who would like to avail a service leave through study leave and come over here to join these courses. On the 1st of May 2023, this year, just about 40 days before coinciding with the Maharashtra Day, the South Indian Education Society jointly with the Sri Shanukananda Fine Arts and Sangeeta Sabha set up a learning center and a Vyayam Sala in Apshingi Military Village in the Satara district of Maharashtra. It was inaugurated by Lieutenant General Ajay Kumar Singh, the GOC-in-C, the commander of the Southern Command, which is the largest formation of the Indian Army on the ground, covering 41% of the landmass of 11 states and 3 union territories. Apshingi is the only military village in this country which boasts of at least one person from every family of the village being in the armed forces of the country. It has contributed to the forces right from World War I. 41 of its men from the soil perished during World War I, and several of them did the extreme sacrifice of their lives post-independence in the wars of 1962, 1965 and 1971. This experimentation of having a learning school and a Vyayam Shala is essentially to equip the youthful aspirants from these rural areas of Apshingi to begin with and the neighboring districts of Kolhapur, Sholapur, Karad, Sangli and Kolhapur, Karad and Sangli, which are the main catchment areas of the Indian Army, to meet the exacting standards of recruitment to Agniveers under the Agnipath scheme and later be good enough to be commissioned into the regular services of the Indian Army after those 5 years as Agniveers. The outcome of this school that we have set up will determine the setting up of several other schools in the Southern Command area to ensure that the most qualified, the most fit of the youth of this country join the Indian Army and contribute effectively to the defense of this land. Wars are no longer fought with armory or with physical this thing. It's more fought of the minds and technology, and therefore there is need to upgrade the skills even at the level of an Havaldar, a Subedar or a Nayak, leave alone the officers of the Indian Army. The South Indian Education Society upgraded several of the schools, the Army public schools, the Army primary schools, the pre-primary schools, the secondary schools, and also the Army Goodwill schools, which are operating in the border areas of the country with a view to integrate the local population to the objectives, to align that with the objectives of the Army in those border areas of the country. This extended social responsibility of the society made us renovate the APS and the APPS schools in Colaba, in Mumbai, the school in Kirki and Dighi in Pune, Kamti and Pulgaon in Nagpur, Bicholim and Ponda in Goa, all falling within the GOC area of the GOC who is present over there today. We went far beyond that. We fully modernized the school at Karu in the Leh district, which is exactly facing the outpost of Chinese and which in the recent years has been an area of strife between the two nations. We also modernized the school at Gurgaon in the Ladakh district, and this journey of upgrading the schools both for the servicemen's children and also for the villages in border areas managed through the Indian Army continues with a relentless vigor. At the instance of the commander of the Southern Command, we propose upgrading the schools in the border areas of the country, to begin with the Southern Command, Sri Ganganagar in Rajasthan and Bhuj in the Rana of Kutch during this year. This journey of enhancing the academic facilities, which are an extended responsibility of the Indian Army for its men and the villages of areas where they function, will continue with renewed vigor. These men in uniform are the real heroes of the nation. They may have their names in their sleeves, that is just for the purpose of identification. But then, what clothes them is the tricolor. Both in life and death, the only companion for them is not their families but the tricolor. They live and die in honor, glory of the tricolor. When they become victorious in war, they come back to the homeland, carrying the tricolor atop to the merriment of the fellow citizens. But God forbid, if they were to attain Virgati, then they are draped in the tricolor, placed in the coffin, and brought to the homeland and merged with the soil, both in life and death. The only companion for men in uniform is the tricolor. They fear no death. Death to them is as light as a feather, but responsibility as heavy as a mountain. They fight the enemy in front of them. They do not hate them, but they love the fellow men of the country whom they have left behind. For their safety they have come to defend the land. That love is far more for them than the enemy that they face. They leave behind their kith and kin, the near and dear ones, and go to defend the sovereignty and the integrity of the land, so that you and I are safe and secure in our homes. They fight to finish because there are no runners-up in war. But at a time when vociferous tendencies have gained currency, divisive elements are rocking the moral fabric of the society, and there is an overall degeneration and debasement of the values and the scriptures of this land. The youth of this nation seems to be swayed by the real heroes, those who dominate the tinsel screen, those who still further the celluloid world, and in recent years, those mercenaries who play for money, but in the name of the country, in the cricketing fields. It is time that we rediscover ourselves and realize the value of the uniform that these people wear, much different than the ones you and I wear at all times. And it is, you lose your freedom to realize what it is. Freedom of speech and freedom of life are eternal for dignity for human living. And only when we realize that these are the men who are the custodians of that freedom which has been given unto us, we know the value of the uniform that they are wearing. It is extremely difficult for ordinary civil society to comprehend the despair, the anguish, the despondency that gets into the members of a family when one from that family perishes in the battlefield. They leave their houses in the solemn assurance by the civil society that it shall take care of the psychological, the non-monetary requirements of these families of the martyrs, because the financial requirements are taken care by the government of India through the Indian Army, and they shall work to bring them to the mainstream society and bring sunshine in their lives. The poet describes the anguish in a martyr's family so beautifully. He says, जल रहे दिए घरों पे चमकती हुई शाम, उदास है उस घर का दिया सरहद पे जिसका जवान शहीद हुआ. The entire village is glowing in brilliance, brightness on the Diwali Eve because of the lamps that have been lit in all the houses. But the lamp that is lit in the house of the martyr manifests pain, anguish and sorrow. It is the eternal responsibility of the government of the day and the civil society to take them out of this distress and bring them back to normalcy in life and spend the rest of their life to achieve the purposes for which they have been born. Statues and busts are required for ordinary little fellows who are ever in dread of abortion of the counterfeit celebrity status. They never perish, who live in the hearts and minds of people. Even as they go away from the physical plane, they graduate from ordinary mortals to deathless institutions and become the war from the woof, the thought and the aspirations of the succeeding generations. They carve for themselves a niche in the rocky temple of reverential gratitude. It is to this category of people, for reverential gratitude, not occasionally like today and yesterday, that the likes of Major Parameshwaran belong to. A country is not merely a territory which is defined by a border and which in the parlance of the Indian Army we will call it as LOC, the one that separates one nation from another. It is much more than that. When Rama vanquished Ravana and handed over Lanka to Vibhishana, his younger brother, Vibhishana pleaded with him to say that you please rule from this Emerald Islands. And he said, I shall carry your sandal and for the rest of my life I shall be happy. Which the Lord said at that time, Janani Janma Bhumischa Swargadapi Gariyasi. Mother to motherland, or greater than even paradise, either here or elsewhere. It is not merely the attachment to the land, it is the attachment to the people who habit that land, along with that land, and those people who are bound together by a common cord of identity called the nation, and that is Deshabhakti. Patriotism cannot be worn on the sleeves. It certainly cannot be paraded on the streets with morchas and rallies. It is an attitude of the mind, one that develops a love for the nation. What better exemplars for this highest of patriotism than the men in uniform? And that's why I have been repeating that if you have learned the lessons of patriotism from the men in uniform, they are worthy of worship at all times. We are beholden to Lieutenant General H.S. Palod for his gracious presence this morning to unveil the bust of Major Parameshwaran, both here and at the SIES College of Art, Science and Commerce. Ever since he assumed the responsibility of the GOC of this command area, he had gone out of the way along with his men to support the social responsibilities of SIES. But for that support, the long list that I had rolled out to you this morning could not have been achieved, and many more will not be achieved. With the inspiration of the GOC and his boss, the GOC will see that will infuse us to go greater heights in our service to this motherland through this men in uniform. At the beginning of the address, I said events like this are symbolisms. And I outlined through the length of my address till now the purpose, the reasons why we have all these functions. But much more than this, all that I told you, the real purpose of functions like this has been beautifully described by the legendary poet, the former Prime Minister of India, Bharat Ratna Atalji. जो खोया है उसे पाना है, जो पाया है उसे न खोना है, आज़ादी अधूरी है. And then he goes into some other poem unrelated to this poem and says, आओ फिर से दिया जलाए, आओ फिर से दिया जलाए. That is the purpose of functions like this. As I come to the end of my address this morning, long as it were, it was structured deliberately so that we do not hit the lunch table very early, and several of you vanished from here because it's too early to take your grub. So I had an extended time. I seek your indulgence, not only for this patient listening, but also for absorbing the thoughts of this monumentalist. May we all be blessed through passage of time in this life journey of ours, in this pilgrimage of progress, in this eternal quest of perfection, a little of the selflessness, sacrifice and seva that has been the hallmark of the life of Major Parameshwaran, and then make our life sublime. Thank you, God bless.